is a very interesting way that maybe we as journalists and reporters and hosts can think about approaching these stories if we have to cover them in some, because there's such big stories. We really kind of try to delve in why. I mean, really, ultimately it is about when you're moving at a fast pace, when the news cycle is so quick, it's hard to get to the why. I mean, the business model of journalism does not incentivize that. The first people to be cut in media are investigative reporters who get to the heart of the why. And so maybe we can start to delve into that a little bit more. Why is Trump, as hard as it may be, why is Trump behaving this way? What are the incentives behind these folks? And it doesn't necessarily mean like what trauma did they go through. It's literally like, what are the financial incentives behind these actions? You know, are these people being used? Is the evangelical community being taken advantage of because they know that they need those voters and they're being used? Like, what is the incentive behind all of this work? What is the incentive behind Joe Biden, you know, not really having any sort of communication? Is it that he's mentally, what is the incentive behind putting him up? So I think that's important. And that's a very important, you know, you teach journalism. That's part of the ethics of journalism that has completely been lost. And whether or not that was what Michael saw him as from that perspective, I think it's valuable, and it really was. I mean, one last thing I'll say about institutions, because I do think this is by design. Institutions, we've become over-institutionalized as a society, and I think he recognized that. And part of what is going on right now, this chaotic moment, is the failure of institutions and people trying to figure out where they stand in the world as institutions have failed us, and whatever remnants of institutions exist and they still exist, are trying to divide us so that we don't unify. Because unifying means empathy and humanity and being able to push forward a truly progressive humanist agenda that he wanted. And I think he recognized that because he was seeped in the history of it. So it's, maybe, you know, it's something. Go ahead.
I just don't know how he did it, right? Because he was so well read. Yes. And on top of that, he was checking in with all of us. He had such a connection with so many different people. Like, that takes work, right? It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of emotional, it takes a lot of the emotion out of you too. It's emotional work to constantly check in with people and hear them out and give them a space to vent if they're going through something. And I'm just honored that I got to know him the way that I did, and I'm going to miss him. And I think the only thing that's going to give me solace personally is to just, again, learn from who he was and try to model my own behavior after that.
One lesson, one piece of his legacy that you want to immediately put forward, what would that be?
Kindness. I would say kindness, and kindness toward individuals. And you know, just his whole mission was to unify people in order to fight the elite class. That's really the simplest way of putting it. And I just think it's so important to carry that out, really. In honor of Michael, of course, in honor of his legacy, but also for a better life for all of us. I'm so tired of living like this, you know, and I'm one of the privileged ones. I have a job. I can do my job from home clearly. But, you know, if you're a working person in America or anywhere else in the world, you know, you live in fear. You really do, because it's such an unstable system, and everything can be wiped away, taken away from you for any number of reasons. Your industry can be taken over by robots. You might actually, you know, be the target of one of these online mobs. And yeah, a lot of people have lost their jobs, and people try to minimize it by saying, oh, they'll find another job. You don't know that. And by the way, like, think about how traumatizing it is to lose a job, especially in the middle of this pandemic. Yeah. So I want to make sure that I keep that kind of stuff in mind and find ways to unify people, even if on some of the major issues we might disagree, right? And there's all sorts of unsavory people in the world, but do they want to fight for economic justice? And if they do, we have a common goal and we need to work together.
Focus on the ideas. That's a big part of this, right? We got to focus on these ideas. Anna, I am so grateful that you've been able to join us today, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he influences your work and others' work, and how we can work together. And I am just so deeply, deeply sorry for your loss and for our loss. It's almost too much at this point, but I thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Nomiki, and thanks for having this conversation. It means a lot to me. And, talking about him is part of grieving and mourning and but also celebrating him. So thank you for the conversation. I love you. I love your work. And let's just keep fighting and fighting together.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Nomiki Show. Make sure to click like and subscribe on YouTube and share with everybody on social media. And of course, if you're not a patron already, please join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for as low as $5 a month. That money makes a huge difference. We don't have the corporate money coming in. We're not cable news that's raking in the dough from advertisers right now as everybody's sitting at home and watching. It is really you guys who are keeping us together. So please consider being a patron. And for those of you who have already, we are incredibly grateful to you.